Hello everyone, my name is Anastasia and I'm one of the organizers of PyBerlin. Today we have a special event, our special podcast with our special guest Coen. Hello Coen, thank you for joining our podcast today, and PyBerlin is super thrilled to get to know you and your experience in software development. And could you please tell us a bit more about yourself and your experience?
Yes, thank you for Anastasia. So, my name is Coen. I've been a Python developer for about 10 years now. And I've been programming since I was a teenager. And even before that, I was into chemistry and then electronics, and then how did these chips work. And until I could finally get my hands on a computer, which weren't that available at the time. First computer I had actually built myself, not just putting a few things in a slot and screwing the case closed again, but actually soldering components onto a board. And it worked the first time, which was very pleasing. And this was a computer that really consisted of 16 keys, 0 to 9, A to F, and in hexadecimal machine code programming. So this is real serious kind of programming, with a little hexadecimal display with 2 digits and 1 LED that could go on and off, which you could connect to speakers. So very exciting. You can make sounds that go up, louder, and higher pitch and lower pitch. Anyway, so yes, so I've been programming for a very long time. It was quite natural for me to then go to university and do computer science, although at the time half my degree was in mathematics. After my first year, I wrote to about 10, 20 computer companies to say, well, look, I know a bit about computers, give me a summer job. And that summer job became then teaching various packages in the evenings for the same company, and that became working in PC and in the software support, including Shell head office, which was quite an exciting environment. So I kind of rolled into kind of jobs and things, and I seem to have always done that. And I never quite finished my degree. I got quite close. There's still one project that I should be finishing off, but it's probably kind of expired by now, I think. So I think I'd have to start again. Yeah, and since then I've worked as a contractor, so where my company sent me out to another company, or I was a pure contractor where I was being part of other people's teams. I've worked in kind of steady kind of jobs as in where I'm just an employee, and I've been, well, currently I am freelance, so I just take on my own projects, all of that. And I work with, well, over the years I've worked with lots of different languages. I mean, I started off with machine code. I've done Pascal, Basic. I've done Clipper, DBase project. More recent, a bit of VBA, a fair bit of VBA. But more recently, well, JavaScript, and then over the last 10 years, I said it's mostly been Python. I deliberately decided to focus on Python because that's just my favorite language. It just works, and it's a nice language. Okay.
Python United People.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I was about to ask you about your tech stack, but actually I'm super curious of how did you build your first computer? Like, did you have any documentation or anything like this?
Well, it was actually a kit. Although, okay, so it was a kit. So, I mean, I cycled off certain hours bike ride in Holland, or an hour and a half, and I got back with a box, and in there there's a board, like a circuit board, and all the components that I just had to solder on. And sorry, it comes with documentation, tells you where to put all the components. Since then, I have delivered training or teaching for a secondary school, a couple of classes, and one of them I kind of designed my own computer, like an Z8, I think it was, CPU, with and properly kind of got the children to kind of solder all the components together. So I have kind of designed this very simple computer as well. But the first computer was more like a training board. 1802, the same CPU that has gone up in the first like lunar landing modules. I think it's the same CPU. So fairly robust thing, but yeah, very, very simple, very basic. But it means early on I could follow what was happening, and it's much easier to learn a very simple CPU than a modern CPU. So I know how to go from transistors and diodes and resistors to integrated circuits, to end ports and end ports, nor XOR ports, to integrated circuits, to the real the microcode and all the steps all the way up to the CPU. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, super impressive.
Well, yeah, I've had a few years to figure it out, and I kind of like that.
Do you do those courses still for the children?
Well, actually, that particular school, I only did it a couple of years, and they no longer have those kind of year groups. They had to scale down, so I'm no longer. It was good fun, and I enjoyed doing that. One particular course, I had about 10 of them in a smallish classroom with very long wires, like the telephone wires where you've got a core of about 6 wires, I think, but there's plastic around it. And it was kind of stretching them all out across the whole room. So it's wires everywhere, just as a group of parents was being showed around the school and they kind of poked their head around. So yeah, it's kind of fun to do. So I've done that, but no, I'm not doing that at the moment. At the moment, it's pure Python training I'm doing. Yeah. It was fun, but it was a lot of work, and yeah, it doesn't pay very well. But yeah, I would love to do more of it.
Yeah, but the fun pays off, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, definitely. Where are you connecting from today?
Sorry, where am I connecting from? Oh,
yeah.
In Bristol in the UK, which is like an hour and a half to the west of London, I guess. It's what's ethics? I would say it's possibly. I would say there's some links with kind of Berlin. I've been to Berlin once to visit some friends, and Bristol's got a fairly kind of loose vibe. It's kind of fairly it's a very friendly city. It's not as big and serious as London. I like Berlin. It's a great city. Yeah, so I was hoping this year, as in 2020, to kind of go and speak at PyBerlin, but of course the conference all fell through. So yeah, but maybe next year.
Yeah, but we had you online, so yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah, it's not the same. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
of course.
get to meet you again. I didn't get to kind of meet all the other people and kind of hang out in the lovely city. So yeah.
Yeah, hopefully next year.
I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is your current tech stack, and why did you choose this exactly focus?
Well, in simple terms, my tech stack is Python. But my two key tools are Python and PyCharm. So my IDE is PyCharm, and I can't do any serious program. Well, I could do serious program. I wouldn't want to do any serious programming without a serious IDE. So yes, and then it really depends on what I'm doing. So if it comes to web development, I prefer Flask over Django. I can do either of those, but I prefer Flask because it's a bit smaller, a bit easier to understand, and not quite so opinionated. But unless I have to do something really kind of serious, where there's lots of databases, tables, etc., then I might go for Django. But yeah, I mean, databases, I mean, all the well-known things, SQL, Alchemy for databases, and whatever else. Currently, I'm just getting ready for a data analysis course, so that will be pandas and NumPy and Jupyter, etc. So whatever is appropriate for the client. I recently did a natural language project, natural language processing project. So I had a look at a few of the tools. I looked at NLTK, Natural Language Toolkit, before, which I quite like, but actually looking at some other libraries, I prefer Spacey as the tool for that. So I think the question is more, well, if you tell me what you want to do, I can tell you what I would use, but because I'm going between different clients, so there's no one specific thing that I use.
Yeah. What is your favorite project so far?
My favorite project? Let's see, it kind of varies well. Okay, so something that I did fairly recently that I quite enjoyed, and it was quite a small project, it's only like a day or something, but this was a fairly complicated mathematical process. I think it was some sort of finding the optimum value for something, so a number of iterations, but it was quite a slow process. So the client asked me to improve it. And I mean, I'm fairly strong in mathematics, but I don't do much, as in, it comes natural to me, but I don't use it on a daily basis. So I always have to kind of get back into it and kind of understand it. So looking at the code, I couldn't have told you exactly what I did, and I probably didn't understand the terms. So what I did instead is I fixed all the random. So I think there's some random factors in there. So I made sure that I kind of tied it down so I couldn't change. And then I ran the code and captured the output. And then I wrote an extra bit of script where I could take my changes, run the code again, and then compare the output against the expected output. So I knew that even as I was trying to improve the speed step by step, I knew I wasn't breaking it, even though I didn't fully understand the code. And there was no test. There was not like a unit test around it, which, if I had more time, but actually the client just wanted some speed improvement, kind of a factor of 10 or whatever I got. It was 10 or 15 or something I achieved. But yeah, that's what the client was looking for. And I could have said, yeah, I'll give me an extra 3-4 days to unit test your code, but that wasn't really worth it. So I quite enjoyed that kind of mixture between those two things. In about the same time, I've also done a video on improving the speed of Python code, and that was quite good fun. To some degree, I really enjoy doing the videos. Like the other one I recently did was for synchronous code, as in parallel and parallel and concurrent code. And any of that where I need to think about examples and how to explain it and learn it more myself, I just kind of enjoy. It's just, and the nice thing with doing a video is it gives you a lot of freedom, because it's just, okay, here's a topic, and explain it. So those are fun too. Those are a few examples.
Wow, impressive. That's a really good example.
All right, okay, good. Yeah.
That's how you have fun with Python as well, and mathematics.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's the nice thing about being freelance, is you've got some choice there. Yeah, you can pick up things that you enjoy, and and not pick up the other ones. So yeah.
As you already mentioned that you're a freelancer, I was quite curious. What does it mean for you to be a freelancer?
So do you mean what I think? What it?
How is it different from like a day-to-day job?
All right. Okay. Well, okay. So in simple terms, so for me, I distinguish between being employed, which is where you've got a boss that tells you what to do, and you show up every day at a particular time at a particular place, or at the moment from home, but still, it's time bound, and you get paid for being there. And if you're productive, then you'll keep the job, and they keep renewing your employee. They don't fire you. Then contractor is more where sometimes contractors are long term, but for me it's more like 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, where you join the company for a little while. You still get paid by the day, better typically than an employer. But yeah, you still, that's the project. That's what you're working on. I found it's well paid. Sometimes it's good fun, and other times it's a bit kind of tedious, and sometimes you're lucky with the team, otherwise it doesn't work quite so well. It kind of varies. And a freelance for me is where you run your own business, and for me it's just me and my business. I don't have people working for me. Technically I'm a limited company, so it's an official company, and I'm the director, but I'm also the only employee. I'm the employer and the employee. But it means that I find my own work, or work finds me, and I decide what I take on. I decide my rates, I decide my hours, and I go on holiday when I want to. All of that within the context of the business. I don't just kind of say, well, okay, I've got 10 things to do, but yeah, I don't fancy working today, I'll just take a week's holiday. But I've got the freedom it's my decision when I work, what I do, and etc. So yeah.
Do you mind me asking, how hard is it to find a client?
Well, that kind of varies a lot. It helps that I've got a lot of experience. So, and so yes, that is a great benefit. So, over the years, I'm kind of at a point where clients find me, which is really nice. But yes, that is definitely the one thing. It sounds fantastic being freelance, but yeah, I mean, between my wife and I, we've got two incomes, so her income is much more stable than mine. So if sometimes I make a bit more money, sometimes I make a little bit less money. So that takes some of the stress out of it. If you're the only person, or maybe if you've got a family and you're supporting the family, you've got children, you've got a mortgage, and you don't have any reserves, then it might not be the best thing to start going freelance, because it really is up to you to find your own clients. Or yeah, if you've got enough experience and you've got a bit of a profile, then maybe clients start finding you. But that is nice, but it's not very predictable. You can't rely on that. So for me, I've been going to some of these online platforms where people look for programmers. What I've been using is Upwork. It used to be something else which I've forgotten. I was on there before; it had a different name, and then it merged, but it's now called Upwork. There are a lot of jobs coming through, but also a lot of people bidding money on jobs in Upwork. I find that I don't bid, as in I don't put a proposal in for many jobs, and so I'm fairly picky in a way, and I've got a reasonably high success score in getting jobs. But that some people will, you look at jobs and you see there's been 20, 30, 40 bids on a job. So 40 people have stepped forward and said, I can do this. You'll see that the range goes between $5 and $10,000 for the same job. At that point, includes, okay. And that, so a message just popped up on my screen that confused me. Well, thank you, yes. So, yeah, so you'll see that some people, they will just bid on anything, or that's what it looks like to me. And it's just a numbers game. And so you're competing with people from all over the world. And you have to think that somebody will get a proposal from 40 people. And there's a lot of rubbish for them probably to go through and to kind of choose something. So for me, I tend to look for things where I'm a little bit more specialized. Like I've picked up a fairly large project, which I think came to about $8,000 or something. So for a sizable project, but based on having a bit of a mathematics background. And I mean, the client said to me after we did a bit of an interview, he said, well, I've spoken to some other people. No, actually halfway through, I was kind of saying, yes. I could follow what he was saying. He's halfway through, he said, like, have you got any questions? I don't know, everything's clear. And it turned out that most of the people he'd spoken to just couldn't follow it, because maybe they were really good programmers, but not so good at mathematics, or maybe having been self-employed for a couple of decades now, I think. I've got also some idea of what business is like. So that also gives me a bit of an advantage there. So I can think like a business owner. So a business owner talks to me and they talk about profit and trying to keep the business running and other things. I can be, that makes sense to me, because the same thing applies to me. And I've been running a business. So I think there's something about when looking for work, look for work that kind of suits you and try to stand out a little bit. And that's what I think I've been doing with Upwork. But in a day, there might be 50 jobs that I could bid for, but most of them I probably couldn't get because my rates are too high, and there'll be people bidding that have far lower rates. But the nice thing is you could start quite low and you could build it up because you've got your reputation. So you could take a year where you say, okay, initially I'm going to take my first 10 jobs I'm going to do for almost nothing. And then I'm going to increase my rate, I'm going to increase it. But if the beginning of maybe the first 6 months, if your focus is on doing a really good job and really impressing your clients, then you're going to get really high reviews. And then people will see that and will see that you deliver. They will see all the comments as well as the stars, and you'll kind of, And I mean, that's the other thing, that my clients are just kind of happy with what I'm doing. So, so I've got a few stars on there. So that's one thing I'll be doing. The other thing I've done is LinkedIn, just a LinkedIn profile, and somehow, particularly some training companies have found me and said, can you do some training for us? Because it's just a combination of Python and training that, you're either a Python programmer or you're a trainer, but there's not quite so many that are a Python trainer. So just having something a little bit specialized and being a bit lucky.
And also have a lot of experience.
Yeah, that's it. Well, but the nice thing with computers is that you don't need, even if you're, well, as long as, even if you have a job during the day that is not programming, that keeps you, I don't know, working behind or work in a shop. Now you've got some interaction with customers, but by the end of the day, you've got some energy left where you can come home at 6 o'clock, by 7 o'clock, you can be behind your keyboard and you can just be churning out code. You can be learning new things. You can be going to open source projects and try to see if you can contribute. You can come up with your own code. You can take part in coding competitions. You can write code. You can write blog posts that show you your experience. I mean, things I've done before is, okay, well, there's something that I see is quite common, that something new that I see people are asking for in Upwork or whatever other platform. I will play with it for a little while, and then I will write a blog post and I'll do something practical with this new thing. And then the next time it comes up, I can say, well, look, I don't have any client experience with this particular library or whatever, but I have written about it. And that is often enough to give you a foot in the door. So you can build up a portfolio. And that is with, I mean, if you want to do, I don't know, was a lifeguard on the beach, well, you don't, it's more difficult to kind of build up a portfolio because I've already rescued 10 people in my spare time, because you'd be waiting a long time to actually, but with programming, it's easy to do. And you can pick things and the other, you can combine it. So if you're into music, you can write some music software. So you can pick something that you already know, and you can combine it with your programming as well. And in fact, that got me into my videos. And in my first conference talk is I was doing games with Python using PyWeek, which is a twice a year game writing competition using Python, where you've got a week to write a game. And for that, I was using Pygame, the library. No, it's a PyWeek, yes. So PyWeek, the event is called, and Pygame, the library I was using. And then at some point, yeah, because I was already using it, and that's how I got experience in it. It's not a very, it won't get you to a job maybe, but it got me some experience, and I was enjoying it. And then a training company, well, in fact, the publisher said, "Can you write a book for us?" I said, "Well, writing a book is a lot of work. And it doesn't pay very well. It's good fun. I'd love to do that, but that would give me, I wouldn't do any work for 6 months and I'd be paid very little." But maybe about a video. So I said, "Well, I've been playing with this thing. Maybe I just do a video on Pygame." This was by the same time I was preparing for a conference. I can't quite remember the order, but I also ended up doing Pygame training session at EuroPython when we met. Yeah, so it's like one thing leads to another, but you start with something that you enjoy doing. At least I started doing something I enjoy doing, and then things just kind of came up, and I kind of do a step forward. And
Wow, that's a lot of really nice tips.
okay, good.
For everyone.
Yeah,
actually, as you mentioned, we met at the conference in Basel last year, and I would like to ask you, what does the community and also the conferences, meetups mean to you?
Okay, so the short answer is that I work for myself, and I only know a few programmers. I've recently started mentoring a beginning programmer here in Bristol as part of like a Bristol mentoring scheme. So about once a week I have a chat with him. And okay, so when, in particular at the moment, kind of being stuck at home, I only know people kind of, a little bit online, but that's about it. I do have an office which is mostly artists actually, like, I don't know, dressmakers and painters and a web developer as well, and a social activist as well. Lots of different people in the same large space, which is really nice. So it's nice to have that bit of variety. But actually, programmers, I don't kind of know that many. So there's that kind of aspect. It's nice to kind of meet and get to know some other programmers. And so there's the kind of sense of community there. the impression I've got from a few things I've done, a few places I've gone to, and a few things I've heard is that Python in particular is really good as a community. I know it's a very open community. I mean, it's even like when you go to a conference and there's a sign on the toilets that says, well, if somebody goes into this toilet, then they will know that this is the right toilet for them. Don't say, well, you're male, female, shouldn't go into this toilet. So it's like the whole community is set up to be open to anybody, regardless of who they are and gender and sex and whatever personality. It's very open, which I think it's really nice. And I think Guido van Rossum, because the creator of Python, has got a lot to do with that. And yeah, might have something a little bit to do with the open Dutch spirit. So that's really nice. I mean, that is just nice and it's nice of being part of something. Of little by little, kind of getting to know something. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I do a bit of reading, so you get to just know people if only by name and by voice as well. So there's a bit of getting to know that. And I reviewed an advanced Python book as a technical reviewer, which means I've now got my picture in the book, which is really exciting. So in a technical book, and I'm the first reviewer. There's a few other reviewers in the book, but still I've got a big picture in the book. But it just happened to be, this is an international publishing company. But it's actually somebody I already know from here in Bristol from a contract I did, which was quite nice. So that's the kind of aspect of kind of to know somebody getting a community. But then, I mean, just going to a conference. So I've been to the one here in Cardiff, the UK one, and I've been to the Basel one. I've been to the one in France, one conference. A bit more difficult. My French isn't quite that good, but it's good enough to follow some of the talks, and quite a few of the talks in English. But it just means it's like having a mini holiday, and I was thinking of it a bit almost like sightseeing. If you landed in a strange city, you get out the guidebook, and there's all these wonderful things that are available for tourists, for people that are visiting. And you will choose the ones that interest you. So the same as at a conference, you kind of show up, you look at the guidebook, at the program for the day, and you choose the talks you want to go to. And it just gives you that kind of that option. And there's other people wandering around, and it's a very friendly city because everybody kind of shares kind of an interest with you. And if you don't fancy, I mean, you don't even have to go to talks. You can just have a chat with somebody, and then there's usually something organized as well. Like there's usually some social events. At PyCon UK, there's a games design thing. There's meals. There's always time to kind of chat with somebody. So there's that as well. So it always feels like a holiday, where just for 2, 3, 4 days, particularly because I work for myself, I can decide what I want to see. There's no boss that I have to come back and say, well, I've went to these 5 talks on this project related to the project we're doing. It's just whatever I think is interesting for me. And now it's a bit of extra kind of interest. I like to put in a proposal, although I haven't done quite so many talks, but I was just getting into that, and then this year everything's gone very dry, and I prefer the face-to-face ones. So I haven't really put anything forward for any conference this year. I'm waiting for the live ones to come back. But yeah, that's the other thing. It's really nice to kind of share and just kind of prepare a talk and share something with the people there.
At least we got the chance to talk to you today.
Well, yeah, sure. I know, sure,
a nice part.
It's something. Yeah, that's something. But yeah, it's not quite the same as kind of face-to-face and just running around. But yeah, well,
1 year we'll get back to normal.
Yeah, that's right, sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah, actually that's how we met in Basel. It was an open community, and one of the participants of the conference came to me and asked me, we met after my talk, I guess, and he asked me, are you from Berlin? I'm from Germany as well. Would you like to go on a trip on the weekend? Because we had a free weekend. I was like, yeah, sure, let's invite somebody else. And I just created a chat in the Telegram of the community, and that's how I met.
Yeah, I just happened to have a car.
Yeah.
That was only because, yes, even for me, that was actually the reason why I could go to the conference. Is there's a music festival just in France, very close to Basel. that I've gone to quite 3 or 4 years now. And this year it was right next to the conference, very close to the conference venue, and it finished the day that the conference started. So I could go straight from the music to from Python. And I had the car with me because it was kind of convenient to kind of go, because we also had a family holiday that went on from there. So for me, it's a whole sequence of one kind of nice thing after another, and kind of in a few coincidences like with yourself, where somebody, and I already knew that this was a nice city because I've been in the area before, but I never had a chance to kind of go. And so when you said, okay, shall we go? I thought, okay, yeah, I wanted to see it for a while. Name escapes me right now, but really charming kind of city that, yeah.
How far is Bristol from Basel if you just go straight by car?
Well, we take about 3.5 hours to get to the coast. Then it's an hour and a half on boat, and then it would be about 10 hours or something, I imagine, drive from there to get to Switzerland. So it's a decent trip.
Wow, quite a big effort to get to the conference.
Yeah, because I've got some friends as well in just on that side of France. So I visit some friends, and I go to the music, and then went to Basel, and then went to further south of France to have a family holiday as well. So I had about 5 weeks of, with a lot of variety. Sometime with some friends, sometime at the conference, sometime with the family. So really nice.
Oh, sounds
this
fantastic.
Year I couldn't go. I was hoping to do something again this year, but it didn't quite work out. But I mean, compared to many people, actually, I can't complain really. I mean, I've still got my job, and I've got my health, and the family's healthy, and can work from home.
Yeah, maybe next year, hopefully.
Yeah, that's right, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question for you before we finish and wrap it up. What is that inspires you the most in software development?
What inspires me most? I mean, inspires me. What I think what drives me tends to be understanding. So I was just reading the C Python internals book by I think Dan Bader, from Real Python. So that's more about how the compiler interpreter works, how C Python works. So I think the one thing that drives me the most is understanding the language, and so it's just something I can learn and understand better and better. And then it's nice to, and I think that's why I enjoy teaching as well, because whenever I'm teaching, I'm always looking for a slightly better way to explain it, or just the next bit to kind of explain, or it might be a new topic that I don't know very well, just well enough to explain, but when you train, then I have to prepare for it. So I think it's all about kind of understanding. And that's why I was saying I can go back to kind of atoms, diodes, integrated circuits, up to kind of Python with large gaps, because things keep moving. But, so I think for me it's kind of understanding. And it's something about being in control. Oh, the other thing I like is getting lost. So with programming, somebody said it's somewhere 95% of the time you bang your head against the wall. It's like being frustrated. And it's that business of being lost all the time. And occasionally you kind of find your way back. Like I do long distance running, and occasionally I'll be in the middle of nowhere. It's the middle of the night and it's just me, or orienteering as well, where you're just kind of lost. And then you find your way back again. And it's just a kind of, keeps it exciting. And the same thing programming, you get stuck in something. You get lost in your thoughts, but you might get lost in a problem where you can spend a long time trying to figure something out. It's kind of frustrating, but it's really nice when you finally kind of find the answer.
Do you provide this orienteering experience in your trainings?
No, well, it's an interesting point actually. So for the training I'm doing, because it's with larger groups and it's quite a condensed training, you don't have much time to kind of go off. I mean, I would love to take a smaller group and have longer period where it's not so much about quickly understanding things, but actually getting the experience. So more about really experiencing the language and becoming more fluid. And in that case, yeah, sure, they would get lost, and that's fine. But I'm not sure if we would deliberately build it in, but that depends a lot on the people. Some people will get lost, and somebody else will just not even notice there was an obstacle, because to them it's quite natural, or they take just the right route. No, not deliberately at the moment, but it's an interesting thought. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, that's true. You never know that you're lost until you know that you're lost.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things as a programmer is to learn how to recognize when you're lost, and then have lots of ways of, lots of options of what you do when you are lost. And I think that's probably the biggest difference between an experienced programmer and a beginning programmer. Is as an experienced programmer, you're used to being lost, and you're used to sort of fixing it, or to find a way out. You've got so many different tools that you can use to kind of find your way back. And it could even be going out for a walk, or kind of sleeping over it, or reading something. But there's so many different things you can do. But as a beginner, you might think you might be stuck much longer, and you may feel like imposter syndrome, where you think, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. There's the experienced programmer sitting next to me, and they're just kind of whizzing on with it. Well, actually, happens to all of us.
Yeah, that's quite common. And that was also one of the questions during our panel session, how to be senior, last year. So that's a really good point. And to wrap it up today, could you please share one advice with our audience, with our listeners about software development?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. It's a bit tricky because there's so many different types of people listening to this, but I'm thinking, for me, I would say keep it fresh. So keep it interesting. So to some degree, your job will tell you what to do, but you probably have got a little bit of extra time, or even in your free time, and just you find that something interests you for a while. Definitely for me, where for a while I will follow a certain path, I'll be interested in something. At some point, I realize that it's no longer interesting, and I'll do something else. But I might come back to it later from kind of a different perspective. So the nice thing about Python, about programming, is there's so many different things that you can do. There's 270,000 plus libraries on PyPI. That is, once you've already learned the 270 libraries, or the modules in the standard library, which are actually really good to learn as well. I mean, I only know about 10 of them, but there's ones I keep going back to. And then there's lots of different fields, so there's always something more you can learn. And sometimes maybe you don't want to learn something, just take a break and just do things for fun, or take a break completely and switch again. But keep looking for ways to kind of keep it interesting and fresh for yourself, because it is it's a big field, and I guess that could also be look out for opportunities. If you've got a job, then look to see what projects are going, or even the project that you're working on. Maybe it's a particular thing people don't want to do. Maybe see if you can become interested in that and learn a bit. So it helps with your job as well, helps with your career. In the end, even though if you have got a job, even though it's a job, you're still over your whole life, programming life, you'll have lots of jobs. So it's up to you what extra you do and where you want to go. I don't know.
Wow, that's a fantastic advice.
Okay, right.
That's my favorite.
Oh, there you go. Good, excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure talking to you today, and thank you for your time. I'm sure that everyone would be thrilled to see you in PyBerlin maybe next year offline.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Let's hope for the best, or maybe PyBerlin can come to you one day.
All right. Okay. There we go. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.